There we go. All right, stream's all up and set. For some reason, my camera decided to drop directly down when I went to start it, but we're all set, we're all good, and we're ready to go. So, final one of the semester. We have quite a bit to talk about, especially with, as we've talked about the last couple weeks, just the playoffs starting. Now we have first round series actually already over and done. We have some that will be played either or are playing right now or are already done. So let's start with, last time we started with the NBA playoffs when we did the kind of subset of NBA and NHL. We'll do NHL first, then we'll do NBA. Middle section, we'll talk about MLB regular season. Season still getting going, getting underway. We officially have like the first month in like leaders of stats and stuff. So that's going to be fun to tap into. And then in the last one, we got the Kentucky Derby. There's a big storyline in that one, and we will get to that when we get to the final segment. But we have playoffs to talk about, and we look at the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We have the Colorado Avalanche. They sweep that series against the Kings. To be honest, I thought the Kings would give up a little bit more of a fight, but, you know, it is what it is. You move down the series below them to determine who they face. That was the Wild and the Stars. And I'm not too surprised. I was fairly high on the Wild coming into the playoffs, especially with the pieces they've been able to add and move and everything. They win the series in 6, win the series 4-2. So we will have Colorado and Minnesota taking on each other. And then we go down. The Vegas Golden Knights take down the Utah Mammoth. It was still good to see a team like the Utah Mammoth where, I mean, still they are taking what they were in Arizona. It's not like the team suddenly expanded. It's not an expansion team. It's still something new because moving from one city to another to be able to get into the playoffs right away is really interesting and good for their history, and it was fun to see them in the playoffs. However, the Vegas Golden Knights, under the coaching of Torts, is able to advance, which is interesting because the Vegas Golden Knights, like in the last week of the season, fired their coach, and they end up going into the playoffs still fine. They win their first playoff series, and one of the big storylines is this next matchup. The Anaheim Ducks take down Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. And it's more significant because of the fact that the Oilers the last couple years have made it to the Stanley Cup and lost. I mean, it's back-to-back years where they made it to the Stanley Cup final and then lost to the Florida Panthers, who the Florida Panthers were not good this year after winning back-to-back. But damn it, I did it again. I did it again. The headset flew off my head. But you have the Ducks taking down the Oilers, and I mean, I thought Edmonton would come in a little bit stronger, especially, you know, considering everything. But I guess with the goalie situation, it eventually came back to bite them. I mean, even in those Stanley Cup runs, the talk was the goalkeeping. And eventually, you're not going to be able to fight your way through it. And they fall to a very strong, I will say, Anaheim Ducks team that made some additions, especially grabbing a lot of those kind of Rangers guys, bring them in who were a little disgruntled with their time with the Rangers, or at least the closing of their time with the Rangers. Bring them into Anaheim, plus all their new looks and everything. They are able to put themselves in a position where they win a first-round matchup against the team that has been making it to the Stanley Cup final, representing the Western Conference. And now they have a chance to take on the Vegas Golden Knights. I feel like that one will be an interesting second-round matchup. The most interesting one is that Colorado-Minnesota matchup. I think that one could be a really fun series to follow, and Colorado's put themselves in a position where they have a chance to take back the title of the Western Conference and represent them in the Stanley Cup final. A lot of people have them predicted into it. I feel more inclined to say the same, especially with the Oilers not making it past and a lot of fresh faces. I mean, the Stars didn't make it past. So two teams that have been making it deep into these playoffs are not there anymore. And you're going to have some new looks. You have the Wild, who have been a first-round exit for a lot of time, but have been making the playoffs consistently. That's a new face to follow along. And then the Golden Knights, they have been a big name in the Western Conference since they've joined the league as an expansion team. They've done a really good job of building themselves up really quickly. I mean, I remember they were just joining the league, and now they're a pretty set staple of the league. And then you have the Ducks, also hungry, a team new and hungry with the playoffs to advance. So that Western Conference is going to be very intriguing to follow. Now, one of the biggest storylines on the Eastern Conference side is the Buffalo Sabres. Across this season, it's been talk with what they've been able to do, how hot they've been, how strong of a team they have been since they started that big run after how they started the season. And with guys like Tage Thompson, with guys like Dahlin, and you have good auxiliary pieces around, you have solid goalkeeping, they're able to take a series against Boston, take that series 4-2, get their first, not only just make the playoffs for the first time in roughly 15 years, but also win a playoff series. So you're going to have even more playoff action. It's just a great thing to see for a franchise that has been struggling for years and years on end. And now, I mean, the streak of missing the playoffs falls to the Jets. Hopefully that one breaks at some point, at least for my sake and sanity as a Jets fan. But for the Sabres, I'm happy that they're able to break their streak and just try and get as deep as they can into the playoffs. They're going to be an interesting team to follow. Now, we'll skip this one for now, where the series is still going to be ongoing. We'll come back to it. We have the Hurricanes versus the Senators. Even though this was a sweep, it felt like a longer series just because of some of the kind of animosity and fighting in the middle of that series. However, the Carolina Hurricanes, we've seen countless times with this team how strong they are in the playoffs, and they just really did whatever they needed against the Senators, and they already positioned themselves well. They've already won the first game of the second round matchup that they have, and that matchup is with the red-hot Philadelphia Flyers, who I mentioned last show how I talked on the Tri-State Sports Ramble with John Coiro, and I talked about how Philly has that chance to be that team that's hot at the end of the season and carries that into the playoffs, and they were able to do that, taking down the Penguins in 6. Really a just strong performance from the Flyers, and then they run into the freight train of the Hurricanes, and I'm not going to lie, Carolina does a great job against those tri-state teams, and I'd be a little bit worried if you're a Flyers fan, but the fact that you got there is a big moment in itself. And we'll go back to the series that is still ongoing, and that is the Lightning and the Canadiens. It's been a really good back-and-forth series going to Game 7, and that game is played today after literally starts the hour after this show. Starts at 6 p.m., so that's one for hockey fans. Everyone is going to be glued to their screens following that one, and I know I definitely will be following along. Now, we move to the NBA playoffs. As we've gone through, we'll just look through every series real quick, and we'll start with the one that's ongoing. The Pistons are up 71-58 on the Magic. Paolo Banchero had like the first, I think, 10 points for the Magic on his own. But for the Pistons, I believe it's been Tobias Harris that has been really, really strong in this Game 7. The Pistons able to work their way back through into the series, and what could have been really bad where they could have lost to the 8th seed, the Pistons able to fight through, and there's been a ton of deep series in the playoffs, especially this Eastern Conference. It is really a big brawl to try and fight through. The Pistons seem to be on track to get out of it. Now, it is 71-58. 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Not over. I mean, we saw the Pistons come back from down like 20, 25. And really any lead in modern NBA really has a chance to be knocked out. These teams are very close, very good. If you give them an opening, they will take it. Now we move to the Cavaliers and Raptors. That game will be played today at 7:30. Two teams going at it. And, I mean, it's just a series where both teams have scored the exact same amount of points. The exact same throughout the first 6 games. So as evenly matched of a series as you could find. That game at 7:30 should be tight, should be interesting. RJ Barrett had the big shot to extend this to a game 7 where it did that big bounce off the back iron, bounced high, fell in, and the Cavs were not able to get a good shot up. So an interesting game 7 to follow. We move forward on the Eastern Conference. You have the Knicks absolutely dominate the Hawks in the last 2 games. It's so interesting because there were back-to-back games where it was one possession wins for the Hawks, and the Knicks were really having to fight for it, kind of getting in their own way. They weren't doing the exact strategies and things they needed to do, and then just something clicked. They were able to find what they needed, and I mean, the final game of the series to clinch it, they were up 50 for majority of that game. The scoreboards we were seeing were absolutely insane, like 72-22, and it would be like in the second quarter. Some of those scores were insane, but a dominant win for the Knicks. They survive against the Hawks and their opponent in a really crazy and fun series. The Sixers come back in the series to defeat the Boston Celtics. The only time you'll catch me rooting for the Sixers is to take out the Celtics. And they are able to pull it off. A 109-100 win over the Celtics. Granted, it was not with Jason Tatum, but the thing of note is this Celtics team played without Tatum for most of the year. This team was good on its own. They were in those top seedings without Tatum and with Tatum. So I don't see that as really any fault of, or any big force field that forced it to happen. Without Tatum, it's still, the Celtics could have won that game. They could have won the series, and the Sixers able to come out on top, and you have a absolute cinematic semifinals matchup between the New York Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers. I am going to be glued to my screen for every game, that first game on May 4th, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Now, we look at the Western Conference real quick. The Thunder, dominant series against the Suns. I believe we talked about that. The Lakers take control of that last game of the series. It got a little bit tight between them, but with Durant out, with the Lakers kind of taking control, they win 98-78 in that last game of the series, win that series 4-2 in Game 6, and they will advance to take on the defending champs in the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, the Nuggets and Timberwolves, it got a little bit scrappy. Most of the times it was the Nuggets kind of running over, especially Jokic running over to express his frustration, but he does it in a very unique way where he kind of rushes up on you. You think he's going to fight you, but then he doesn't. It just ends up how it plays out. But on the court, Timberwolves come out on top. They win the last game 110-98. And despite fighting injuries of Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, who they lost for the year, still good pieces with Gobert, with Randall, and Naz Reid. All the pieces they've had for the last 2 years, they're able to take down the Nuggets. And then the Spurs, they did give up one game, but really pretty much dominance from the Spurs over the Trailblazers. Win the last game 114-95. And advances for a matchup between the Timberwolves and the Spurs. So when I look at this second round, obviously one of the Eastern Conference matchups, we don't know what it will be. I think the most entertaining, just because the rivalry aspect, is the Knicks 76ers, and maybe it's a little biased as well. However, I think that series is going to be absolute cinema. You have the Timberwolves and Spurs. I think that one could be a really good matchup as well. There's some young talent on the Spurs that'll be fun to follow. You have this Timberwolves core that they've built over the last couple years. And then Thunder Lakers, potentially a snooze fest. Potentially could be interesting. You never know. We'll have to see with that one. And then I think this other Eastern Conference one, whatever the matchup may be, I think it has potential to be good. It might also be on that underwhelming side, but that's fine. You never know, though. They could be some of the most entertaining games, but that's kind of the run-through of everything in the NBA and NHL playoffs. So, 1077 The Bronx has very exciting news. Our new video stream is officially live. Now you can listen to The Bronx on air, online, and on app to watch your favorite student shows live on The Bronx YouTube channel and Facebook at 1077 The Bronx, including What's Next Sports, Talk of the Town Sports, Bronx After Hours, The Concast, Cliff Notes, and Wake Up Rider. Keep it tuned to The Bronx to listen to and watch your favorite student shows. We will be back with more of your journey across the sports world after these
WRRC.org.
With over 750,000 views in the last 90 days, our social media is poppin'. Be a part of the trend. Follow 1077 The Bronx to see what we're up to on air and behind the scenes on Instagram at 1077 The Bronx and on TikTok at 1077 The Bronx WRRC. After you follow the Bronc on social media, support the Bronc on and off campus. Gear up for summer by shopping the Bronc General Store. From short-sleeve tees and polos to insulated drinkware, for your acai refresher, go to 1077lebronc.com/shopthebronc to make your campus fashion statement. Welcome back to your journey across the sports world on your 5-time National Association of Broadcasters Marconi Radio Award-nominated station, 1077 The Bronc. So, a lot of playoff action to talk about, but we are going to move back into some regular season action, and that is in the MLB. So, I thought we would look at some of the batting leaders and some of the pitching leaders. Actually, let's start with the pitching side. Some of the big names that have been either breaking out or just performing well across the early parts of this season. So, one of the biggest stories is, once again, Chris Sale doing a really good job, and it's just what he's been able to do with his career. Really, he went from having no Cy Youngs, was an incredible pitcher with the White Sox in his early career. Having under a 3.1 ERA in his first 5 years, and then goes to Boston, remains super dominant, super strong, and that performance just continues. It's so consistent across his whole career. Just a lanky lefty. That slider is just so hard to hit because of the arm angle that it gives, the break he's able to get on it. And he gives you a consistent amount of innings. Usually didn't get hurt early in his career. Had a little bit of a problem at the end of his Boston career in staying healthy. And then he came back. He missed most of 2022 and 2021. Came back into 2023 and didn't have the season he wanted to. Just probably not. His arm was not exactly where he needed it to be. But with the Braves, has gotten back to form, won a Cy Young with the Braves. And, a 2.38 ERA and 225 strikeouts in 2024. Strikeouts knocked down a bit. Did lose a couple of starts in 2025. 20 compared to 29 games in that case. However, still kept that 2.58 ERA. And so far this season, in 42 innings of work, a 2.14 ERA, has struck out 49 on the season, and he just continues to dominate on the mound. One of the best pitchers to follow along, and just for me, because he's Boston, it always kind of hurts to say, but there's sometimes where you just have to, even if you don't like a team, you respect the talent and the ability, and you have to admire it, and Chris Sale is one of those greats that you have to admire. Just an incredible pitching talent, and late in his career, at the age of 37, he still is able to remain dominant and consistent. That is something that makes me really happy to see. Now, we look behind him, and we have a little bit of a different story, and that is Jose Soriano. He's not old. He is 27, so just reaching his prime. One of the pitchers in that Angels rotation that he's been solid. Kind of one of those arms that goes under the radar. You don't really notice them because they're on a team that's struggling for years and years and years, and the Angels still remain a team that just cannot find what is going to work. And it's unfortunate. They've had talents come through. They have some really strong talents right now, and Mike Trout obviously still there, and just they're not able to find a way to build a team that they need. But aside from the team building aspect so far, already in this year, he has a higher WAR than his first 3 seasons. His first season was 0.5 WAR. That was in relief role. That's how he got started. Then in 2024, got consistent starts, started 20 of his 22 appearances. Still that ERA at 3.42, not terrible. And that's where the Angels could see that potential for him in the rotation. Kept him in, had a 4.26 ERA last year, but you bring in a guy like Mike Maddox, give him a look at a pitcher like Jose Soriano, and it's really helped this staff. When you look at the stats, I don't have the exact numbers. I remember seeing a tweet that the older pitchers are kind of struggling with the Angels, But when you look at pitchers that were, I think it was somewhere around like 29 or 27 or younger, they're really stepping up. Guys like Chase Silseth, who've been around that team for a while. And you have some of those lanky starters they're starting to get developing. But Jose Soriano has been the big story of this pitching rotation, really taking a turn around. And maybe if the Angels potentially can find some bullpen pieces, if they can keep themselves at the edge of playoff contention or at the edge of the fight, I think at the deadline, if they be aggressive, if they try to find some relief pieces, some arms to get in there, I think there's potential that they could try and squeak in. If you're, obviously, Jose Soriano's not going to keep a .84 ERA so far this season. However, if you can get any bit of a 2 to 3 range, if you're able to get that from Soriano, even like around what he's done already, a 3.4, if you're able to drop that down maybe to like a 3.2 at his highest, can be a really productive guy for the Angels in the future if they try to build around this and try and develop guys. I think there is a window where the Angels can try to do something. However, we'll just look at this season specifically. Soriano, a 7 games started, a 5-1 record, which on a team like the Angels or a struggling team, it's hard to get those wins. He's winning his games. He's getting 5 wins of his 7 starts. He does have 1 loss, 2.6 WARs. We mentioned a .84 ERA, a .94 WHIP in 42 2/3 innings of work. Now the one thing is the length. He's gone 113 innings in 2024, 169 in 2025. The question is, how much can you ramp up those innings and his arm to still stay at the level he's at? He has not had that extended season of work to show that his arm can last it. It's only one way to find out, and that's by giving him those innings. And the Angels are going to be trusting him throughout this whole season. And he's just been incredible. .84, 49 Ks. His stuff is incredible so far this season. He's basically unhittable. It is a month. Granted, he's going to have a cold month eventually. That's just how this cycle of baseball works. However, if the Angels can turn this into something consistent, I think that would be really crucial for them. Now, we look behind him, and we just kind of look at the ERA category. You have behind him a young pitcher in Justin Robleski for the Dodgers. Now, granted, the talk of the Dodgers is that they spent a lot. They buy a lot of their players. They use deferred contracts to get people in. But the other aspect that with that part is that the way they develop players is super underrated. And it is talked about a fair amount, but with how much they spend on a mainstream media area, it's not talked about as much as it needs to. And Justin Robleski is another example of what the Dodgers farm system and development staff have done across their work so far in the early parts of this season. A 1.25 ERA for Justin Robleski, 5-0 on the season, and really stepping up as a core starter for this team. And he did make some key relief appearances in the postseason last year when they won the World Series. It's just the Dodgers also, in addition to what they're able to do with everything else, they're able to develop these guys around the superstars that they pay to add on. And that's what makes the Dodgers so sustainable, is that fact. Because we've seen teams that buy players, it doesn't work out. And that's just part of the process. Sometimes you just end up buying a player that doesn't fit. That always happens. Kyle Tucker's been really struggling for the Dodgers. And it's interesting because it's pitches in the zone that he's struggling to get out and get base hits on. But he has the luxury of that because of what the Dodgers have built. But a good start for Robleski. Obviously, you can't talk about strong starts of the season without talking about the Yankees' Cam Schlittler. He's been incredible. Just what he's been able to do since he came into the position in the postseason when he pitched against the Red Sox and dominated, and what he's done to start this season. Because we've seen players have really, really, really dominant playoff performances and then kind of fall down. Like, think of a Randy Arozarena, right? His playoff run with the Rays was incredible, setting records, just pushing them forward, getting the Rays all the way to that World Series push. And then after that, he's kind of fallen to about an average, below average player. Just one of those guys that's there, can be a bit flashy at times, but I think what Schlittler's done so far is to be able to take what he's done and carry it into the next season, take that step forward. And that's a big thing for the Yankees. And he's done an incredible job, uses three fastballs and tunnels them extremely well, that his fastball is able to rise up and he's able to work those two seams, cutters, all the kind of fastballs in while still having the breaking pitch. And that's what's making him so good so far, being able to tunnel extremely well. And I mean, you look at what he's done this season, a 1.51 ERA in 41 2/3 innings, and has 49 strikeouts. Puts him, let me put the K totals, puts him in a good spot, about that 6th range in terms of strikeouts so far. And just doing a good job of getting the swing and miss, getting the strikeouts. And we'll look a little bit down the list. We'll go a little bit faster on these. Nick Martinez having a solid start to the year. Parker Messick, Clay Holmes, Bryce Elder, Davis Martin of the White Sox. And then you get to Chris Sale, Chase Burns, Max Fried having a solid start as well. And then you get kind of into that range where it kind of all blends together. You get to a lot of the pitchers. So we'll move to the batting stats. And one of the big names so far early in this season, Ildemaro Vargas. He's carried a deep hit streak so far this season. And for the Diamondbacks, just getting on base, unlike anyone else, hitting .382 with 6 home runs in the year, 21 RBIs. And that's a big step up from what he's done. Kind of became a journeyman. Started with Arizona, then Minnesota and the Cubs in 2020. 2021, Cubs, Pirates, Diamondbacks. 2022, Cubs, Nationals. 23 and 24 with the Nationals, and then back to Arizona over the last 2 years. Not really doing much production early in his career, then able to find a productive role, gets some playing time with the Nationals, builds himself up to be at least a serviceable player, about average on WAR. However, the last 2 years, he hit .270 in 38 games last year, and then this year, .382, .406, .657 slash line for a 1,063 OPS early in the season. Just doing a really good job getting on base, and his hit streak just continues to grow, finding ways on base, building himself a role as a veteran of the league, finally finding his groove as a 34-year-old. And his streak is at, I believe, 24. It is a franchise record. So, I mean, just a really good job. Ben Rice, he did get hurt today, but the x-rays were negative, so that is good to see. It was a hand contusion on a pickoff play. However, he's unsurprisingly stepping up in this season. I'm not surprised at all. Ben Rice was incredibly unlucky last year. He was hitting the ball super hard last year, and it was just getting unlucky time after time after time. And finally, still hitting the ball hard. Now it's finally starting to drop. One of the few bats in the Yankees lineup that is really taking that step forward. Ben Rice hitting .343 on the year. Tied Judge at 12. Tied Jordan at 12 for the lead until Judge hit another homer that put him up to 13. But Ben Rice, a 12-14 OPS, doing a great job. And then you have some names, Otto Lopez and Xavier Edwards, hitting for some good average. Shea Langoliers doing an incredible job in Sacramento, technically, for the A's, hitting .336 with 9 doubles, 10 home runs, a .390 on-base percentage, .627 slug, a 1,017 OPS. And when we look at the OPS leaders, or actually, let's look at home run leaders. First, so for home runs, Aaron Judge, he is hitting .264. The average was at like .220, .230. He's working his way up. So Judge finding his groove in that regard. However, the power has really been there on pace for that 60 home run mark. So we'll see if he's able to chase that. Jeez. And then you have Murakami right behind him. He is an interesting case. He's such an interesting player to follow. He was expected to get that super big contract when he announced that he was moving over, a big piece of that World Baseball Classic team for Japan in 2023 especially. However, this year, moving to the MLB, the average is not there, still struggling a little bit on some of the pitches in that regard, hitting 231. However, he has 13 home runs, 26 RBIs, and a 372 on base. He's getting walks. He has 27 walks on the year. So he's not only hitting for home runs and power, he's getting on base with walks. Granted, he's not getting on base with the hits, but strong plate discipline is making him a positive player for this Chicago White Sox team. And a 372 on base, 564 slug, 937 OPS, doing a really good job being productive with the White Sox in his time coming over from Japan. Now, behind him, Yordan Alvarez, no surprise, really strong season so far. 12 home runs, batting at a 326 average, 1,097 OPS. We go back to the top. You have Aaron Judge. 13 home runs, just doing a really good job. 1.9 WAR, doing what he needs to do with power. Still 26 walks as well. Does have 42 strikeouts, but that's a given with Judge. He's going to strike out a lot. He doesn't really use ABS a lot, which is an interesting dynamic. We kind of go down a bit. Matt Olson having a really good year. The Braves are back in form, and he is hitting 1,012 OPS with 11 homers. Schwarber, as we know, incredible power. He's not going to have the average, but he's going to have the power. Hitting 220, but 11 home runs, 921 OPS. Kind of a typical Schwarber you expect. Mike Trout, average not as high as you want, hitting 256, but has 10 home runs, 21 RBIs, and a couple stolen bases, has 5, but 840 or a 987 OPS. Doing pretty solid. Buxton secretly having a pretty solid year, just average, typical Buxton, really. The last kind of couple things. Buxton's average usually isn't greatest. Hits for a good amount of power, 10 home runs, and 843 OPS. Jordan Walker, been really good to start the year. Ellie De La Cruz. Mickey Moniak, hitting good, 9 home runs, 1,000 OPS. Granted, that is Coors effect when you look at his splits. And yeah, that's a lot of the leaders. We look at the standings. The interesting thing is it's pretty much the Yankees and Rays as almost some of the only teams confidently above 500 in the AL. You have the Yankees at 23-11. You have the Rays right behind them. The Rays have been doing really good. We talked about Martinez was doing pretty good for them. The Rays find ways to get production out of their pitchers, out of their players. When it's not like the mainstream names, just always finding a way to get production. Blue Jays, defending AL representatives, 16-18. I kind of had that feeling they weren't going to be as good as last year. It is only a month, and my words could end up biting me, but I was not that high on the Blue Jays. I felt it was a little bit more of, not, I'd say more fluky, where it was a one season. These guys are doing good. They're getting hot, and I'm not surprised that they're not doing the greatest. The Orioles, 15-19, not doing good, and the Boston Red Sox at the bottom of the division. I like that. I like them down there. Keep them down there at the bottom. All right, AL Central. You have pretty much typical AL Central. Sitting around 500. These teams will be tight. It is interesting. The White Sox are close in that race right now. Guardians 18-16. Tigers 17-17. White Sox 16-17. That'll be a fight we'll see, especially Guardians and Tigers throughout this year. The AL West, Angels at the bottom, but still somehow only 4.5 games back. The leader of the division is the A's at 17-16, and really not too much with that division. 16-17, 16-18 for the Rangers and Mariners. Those divisions still have to pick up. We'll see in the middle of the season what those divisions look like. Braves, as mentioned, 24-10. And then the rest of the division, the Mets at the bottom, 11-22. Phillies at 14-20. With Mattingly, they're starting to find their groove. We'll see how that ends up playing out. Nationals 16-19, Marlins 16-18, not really close. Cubs, Reds, Cardinals sit atop of the National League Central. Really strong division, to be honest. All in the positives. 22-12 for the Cubs, 20-14 for the Reds, 20-14 for the Cardinals, 18-15 for the Brewers, and 19-16 for the Pirates. Them actually spending's putting them in a competitive spot, and that's what we want to see. These lower end teams spend the money. Spend the money, and maybe we'll see how it plays out. The Pirates being more competitive than we've seen before. Dodgers, unsurprisingly, top of the division. Unsurprisingly, the Padres right behind them, 21-13 and 19-13 respectively. Then you have the Diamondbacks, Rockies, and Giants, especially the Rockies and Giants. They're just kind of there. So that is a rundown of the MLB, some of the leaders, top guys to spotlight, and some of the standings. So we do have to go to some underwriting announcements. So we have a winner. The winner of 1077 The Bronx first ever Build the Ultimate Bronkwich competition is Sergio Nino Vela and the Lamido. Sergio scored the most votes at the Build the Ultimate Bronkwich finale. In fact, Sergio scored 57% of over 700 votes to land the Lamido on the menu at Muller's Pub and the Yoka's food trailer next semester. Plus, that coveted Royal Caribbean cruise for 2 to the Bahamas from Josh Harry Travel, and more prizes. Congrats to all our Tasty 3 finalists, Jesse Doty, Caitlin Lawler, and of course Sergio Nino Vela, the winner of the Bronx first ever Build the Ultimate Bronkwich. We will be back with more of your journey across the sports world after these underwriting announcements on your 2026 Intercollegiate Broadcasting Systems Media Award winner, 1077 The Bronx.
Rider University's campus traditions are
best morning show, Wake Up Rider. Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m., join Sophia, RJ, Ellis, Brian, Lathan, Brandon, and Sheer for 2 hours of fun and games, including the Monday Morning Hangover, underwritten by McGuinn's Place, and the all-new Morning Bagel Run and Jewelry Spree, underwritten by Caesar's Bagel and Deli, and Peroni's Hidden Treasures in Mercerville. Go to 1077thebronx.com/wakeuprider to listen live on air, online, on app, and to catch up on past episodes. Welcome back to your journey across the sports world on the Princeton Review's number 18 ranked best college radio station, 1077 The Bronx. So, we've talked a lot of the mainstream leagues. We've talked about NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, MLB regular season. But now one of the biggest events in sport, not with a ball, not with a stick, not with a racket. I mean, maybe with a stick technically for the jockeys, but the Kentucky Derby. We got horse racing, and one of the biggest events, obviously a big cultural event, with it being a significant moment where everyone kind of follows along. And in the 152nd running of the Kentucky Derby, which happened on Saturday, happened yesterday, it was ran with 18 horses, and the winning horse was Golden Tempo. And there were a couple of big stories across this win, not only for the background and everything of the trainer, the jockey, the horse, however, also just as a whole, the event, what happened, the results, the fact that Golden Tempo was at the back of the pack, and then you follow along, it just keeps working its way forward, working its way up to the pack, finds its way an avenue around the outside, and just keeps pushing along, moving itself up, and wins by, I think it was by the neck, I think, that ended up winning. So that in itself was very entertaining and a great story to follow. However, there was more backstory to it. It's the first time for jockey Jose Ortiz, who wins the Derby in his 11th attempt. So he's finally able to find a way to win the big event, the event that any horse jockey wants to be able to bring their horse to the finish line with a win. And to beat 18, or to beat technically 17 other horses, is big in itself. Now, the huge storyline, the main talking point of this win is the trainer. Golden Tempo was trained by Sherry DeVoe, and they are the second female trainer to win any Triple Crown race. The first time was Jenna Antonucci, who won the 2023 Belmont Stakes with Arcangelo. However, with Golden Tempo and that being trained up by Sherry DeVoe, she becomes the first female trainer to win the Kentucky Derby. So to be able to have that storyline, which is an amazing story to follow along, just really puts together a really entertaining and fun event to follow along. And also the outfits as well. I believe Jackson Dart got the award for best dressed at the Kentucky Derby, which that is a thing in itself, the dress attire of the Kentucky Derby. There is a certain dress attire you have to follow when attending these events because they're more sophisticated, more regal, more well put together, because horse racing is more of that rich style sport where a lot of the rich people either bet on it or are in the industry working these horses up, training them up, and getting them going. But to see the stories behind, to follow along with the action, it's a fun event. And I just felt like it was something that had to be talked about, especially with the fact that Golden Tempo not only went from last to first pretty much, whether that be strategy, because I know part of horse racing is trying to manage the energy, trying to manage runs, and especially because it can get busy with a bunch of horses almost like side by side next to each other in a pack. Sometimes there's strategies where you lay back a bit more. I remember reading a book on horse racing. I cannot remember the book or the movie, but I do remember it. And I don't know. I remember that was like part of the strategy of it is sometimes it's waiting at the back, waiting for your moment, and then getting that run down to the line. And now I just want to remember what the name of the book is, but I can't remember it. It's not coming to me. However, well, just the storylines to follow with this. The fact that the jockey who's been fighting for so long, all of these jockeys of the horses, a lot of them just keep putting their name in the bucket, keep trying and trying and trying to win this staple of an event. Almost like for me, it's kind of thinking of like NASCAR, where they're fighting for that Daytona 500 win. It's so storied, it's so historic, and some of the greats never find a way to get that win of the event. And the Kentucky Derby is pretty much that of horse racing. It's the premier event, the one event that any of the jockeys put down on their list, their bucket list, that they want to win this event. And it's great for Jose Ortiz to be able to win it on the back of the horse, get their first win as a jockey at the Kentucky Derby, to have Golden Tempo win with the way it won, and just it being trained up, being the first time that a horse trained by a female trainer has won the event. Just a ton of storylines to follow along, but that is all we have for you today. So thank you for listening to your journey across the sports world. We'll be back next Sunday at 5 p.m. So stay tuned for more of the biggest hits and best